Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May everyone find their existential bliss. May all the beings find their existential bliss. So this is the second day of the corona-related issue discussion, and we have been covering some ground the last week, and we are also on a sort of a structured program. We were trying to look at the issues related to corona, issues like boredom, freedom taken away, building stress, uncertainty, fear of sickness, etc. And then we also divided these issues into a few categories, three categories: compulsion, fear, and non-acceptance. And we have been covering mostly on compulsion, and today let's get deeper into that because we couldn't finish it the last week. So let's get deeper into that and see what kind of compulsive issues that we have and how a monk would tackle it. So to start with, um, let me tell you that we grow as kids to become elders and to become old. And during each part of our transition, during each part of our life, we consider or we give focus on various things. Like, for example, a kid who's 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years old would focus primarily on his education. Or at least it's probably not the kid, but the parents or the peers or the society in general would want the kid to consider education. So during that period, the kid puts a lot of effort in education, and he stresses a lot and he gets stressed a lot. In countries like Sri Lanka, India, you find kids getting stressed a lot because they have to work hard. So when this kid grows to become an adult, what is more important would be finding a job, and then how that person is successful in his first job. So during that part of your life, you focus a lot on your career. And then there comes a time when you're a little senior, it will be about your power, like how much power do you have in that company, what type of a status you maintain, starting from your vehicle, from your house to the title that you own. So during that part, you'll be focusing primarily on power, and then you'll be working so hard on it. And then there will come a time where you are looking at there will be coming a time when you are above 40 or above 45, 50. Your primary focus would be how to be healthy, because your cholesterol levels and your diabetic levels go up, your sugar levels go up. And then your primary objective would be how to become healthy. And if especially if you are a lady, sometimes you consider, how do I stop my aging, how do I use this anti-aging, and then how do I keep my face wrinkle free. So there comes a time where you're focusing on health, and a little later, after 70, maybe 80, 90, your primary focus, or what you consider the most valuable, is not education, not career, not power, not health, but it's really the time that you have left. What I wanted to stress you is that during each of this period, that you, when you're a kid, you're focused on education, and there's a big rat race on that. There's a lot of work done around education. And then, especially when you're a adult, you focus a lot on career, and you spend a lot of time on career, and then on power and health. But eventually, when you move to the next stage, for example, you see that the person who gets the best job is not the person who's most educated. If you look at globally, the top 100 billionaires list, most of them are dropouts. And the people who have gotten PhDs, MBAs, they are not the ones who are earning the most. And even countries like Sri Lanka, you see sometimes it's not totally based on meritocracy, but it's sometimes based on what connections you have, and how you have gotten there. So all this effort you put on education, it doesn't sort of reflect, I mean, the amount of stress that you have to undergo, it doesn't reflect, or it doesn't translate when you start your career. And all that effort that you put in your early career does not necessarily translate in your mid-career when you are a senior manager. Sometimes it's again not based on meritocracy. It's based on how well you play the politics, how how it just happens to be. So you'll find that all that effort you put during the early stages of career doesn't necessarily translate like that. And during the more later stages, your retirement stage, you will see that you have been working hard, trying to maintain a lot of power, and then trying to do a lot of maybe not so nice things that you would have ideally done, not very kind things to maintain your power. All that you did would not give you an extra day of good health, because you can't stop aging, you can't stop your organs deteriorating. Um, your cholesterol levels, your blood sugar levels, they keep going up. And then a lot of people come across, if you are not so fortunate, come across a lot of issues like kidneys, cancers, etc., etc. You name it, there's everything. And now there's corona on top of it. So all that effort that you put on career, education, power does not matter when it comes to health at that age. And there's another age where you could only move in a 2 meter by 2 meter room, or that's the only space you could move, or you need a walker, or you are bedridden. So all that houses that you built, all the power that you maintained, does not really matter at that age. Don't again misunderstand. What I'm trying to say is that you should not focus on education, career, health when it matters. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that during the time that you have been putting a lot of pressure on yourself, putting a pressure on the others, and not being considerate about the society in general, the environment, your loved ones, all that effort that you put, does it necessarily translate to become useful when it comes to the next stage? Again, please do not misunderstand. I'm not saying for you to be demotivated. But what I'm saying is that what's the true purpose of doing all this? In fact, I find that this century, or this year 2020, we have been very lucky in a way, because Corona, or the COVID virus, it automatically grounded us. When I say grounded, it's not like an annual leave. Everyone is on leave. So there's no point of turning on your computer, because everyone is on leave. The supply chain is down. Everything is down. So there's nothing. At least I'm talking about the early parts of COVID lockdown. So Corona actually gave you a chance to think about your purpose. Now, I worked all this time. I studied all this time. I was doing all these office politics and all things possible under the sun and moon to retain my power. But what did I really gain? Or was it worth it? Now, I've been trying to live a happy life. Is that what I have been achieving? So it was a really good pause that the world gave it to you, the universe gave it to you as a reminder, probably, that you should stop a little, get out of this rat race, and think for yourself. What are we really doing? So let me ask you that question. What are we really doing? What is our true purpose of life? And if I may ask the question, why do you exist? What's the purpose of this existence? What does really matter? One would say, well, I live because there's responsibilities. I live because I'm just there. You know, I was born, so I'm living. That would be a common answer. But then again, at each stage, if you look at it, education, career, power, the health, the period where you need health, where you start wearing a Fitbit, and when you start going to the yoga class and start reducing on the carbohydrates and looking at what you eat, and that time when you just hope that there's more time, what do we really look for? Maybe we need to be fulfilled of something. Maybe we need to be happy, or we need to associate things so that we can get entertained. But let's see, especially when you are young and when you are old, when you grow older, things change. For example, if you take a really young kid who's about 10 years of age, or even younger, and old person who's retired and at home, or a monk, you will see that the common thing with these three categories is that they have no plan. A young kid who's not still attending school, or at least doing distant learning, or an adult would not have a plan in their life. Same goes to a monk. There's no plan. There's no future, basically. We don't have to think about a future. And why is that? For a kid, he's so free. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Parents are providing for everything. He's probably ignorant of the fact that the future holds for him, or he doesn't care too much because it doesn't concern him very much. And for a old person, although he would like to think he's incapacitated, he knows that no matter what I do, I am out of resources. I cannot get my energy, I cannot get my eyesight, I cannot get my hearing. All I can do is accept and then stay as it is. But what about a monk? A monk is not ignorant because he's an adult. A monk is not incapacitated. And then why is a monk living without a plan? Unattached, people say. But let's see what is being unattached. Is monk dropping his plans and living a life without a plan because he's depressed, because he doesn't want to live anymore? Or is it because of a fanatic reason that, sometimes people can get a little fanatic over a cause? Religion, I find, sometimes makes people fanatic easily. So is it that why a monk lives without a plan? Now, again, don't misunderstand. I'm not giving you a negative message that you should not live without a plan. Of course, when we work in a daily life, we do have a plan. For example, although I say I did not have a plan, I had a plan to come and meet you today on every Saturday evening. So there is a plan. But if you look at long term, I do not have a plan as a monk. Now, let me tell you an interesting story about how I got ordained. Getting ordained as a monk is not only about changing to a different piece of garment. It's about changing your mindset, really. It's about detaching from your secular life bonds and opting for a path which is non-secular. So I remember the time that when I was getting ordained, so I was staying at this temple for about a month before I got ordained, and the senior monks were proposing a name for me, that you have to change your monk name from your previous lay name. So they were proposing a name for me, the senior monks who were resident here, and they were saying, let's go with this name called Kottita. And then I was there getting ordained in the morning. So there's this ritual where you shave your hair and make yourself totally bald, fully shaven. So during that ceremony or the ritual, the head monk, my teacher, he approached and said, "So what's the name that we are proposing for this new monk?" Then the senior monk said, "Let's call him Kottita." And then the head monk was thinking, "Well, Kottita doesn't sound nice. Let's give him Ananda." Just like that. And I felt in that moment how that I have left everything, including my identity, totally gone. I was thinking that my name would be this from my lay name, but in a matter of time, it changed completely to a totally unknown name. So I felt that it's a fantastic opportunity to feel how impermanent things are, and how things hang on someone else's, how things hang on thread and on in someone else's hand, how it hangs on the universe, how it's not totally under your control. And for that moment, you see that for that moment, I saw how detached I got from being a lay person, not only in terms of your shaven head or in terms of your robe, but in terms of how you think. So that is how a monk um becomes unattached. But again, let me reiterate that getting detached is not about getting depressed or getting ordained for some fanatic reason. But if we look at how people get detached, let me take an example. Now, every one of you, sometimes when there's summer, you go to beach with your kids, right? And the kids starts making sand castles. Uh, they play a lot, and one thing that they do is make beautiful sand castles. In fact, I see that there's this island in Philippines called Boracay. They make beautiful. There's actually a annual contest where they make beautiful sand castles, and I see that every time, each year, they make a sand castle better than the previous year. But what I also notice is that at the same place, one year you make the sand castle, and the next year it's gone. There's a new castle. It's much better looking, but it's a new castle. If you look at how kids and adults play on the beach, adults of course don't play, but they just watch the kids. But when a kid is making a sand castle, the kid is so into the making of sand castle, and he or she tries to make it so beautiful, look nice. But all of a sudden, you see that there's a wave a little bigger than usual, which comes and totally swipes off the entire sand castle. Now the young kid is sad. He starts crying. And as the adult, as the parent, you are there. You try to console the kid. See, son, don't cry too much. That's the nature of things. It happens. Let's build another sandcastle. That's what you would say. So when it comes to our daily plans, now COVID has disturbed many of our plans, but we don't really look at our life as a castle, a sand castle built on a shore, on a sandy beach. We don't look at it that way. Like the adults who are on the shore with the kid, they don't get upset about the sand castle being washed away, wiped away. And the kid who's weeping over the lost sandcastle, as adults, we are weeping over our lost sandcastles, which are which are fabrications on a very impermanent shore. And again, if you look at why an adult wouldn't cry, because the adult knows that it's the nature of things. Apart from knowing the nature, he also accept the fact that it is the way it is. That sand castles, they tend to get washed away. So this is how adults move on and the kids weep. So getting back to detachment, we see how an adult still building a sandcastle is still detached from building a sandcastle, but he builds a beautiful one, like the sandcastle they create for the contest in Boracay Island. Fantastic. And I also see every time that the monks here in this temple, they sweep these premises. We have a lot of bamboo trees and there's a lot of bamboo leaves. Every day, every evening, twice a day, the monks and the residents sweep the temple. And every time the bamboo leaves are covering the premises, front yard and the backyard. No one is complaining. No one is angry of the bamboo trees. They just sweep because they accept it as it is. And the residents and the monks, they are not too attached to the beautified premises. They know that beautified premises can eventually change. So change is something which we can't stop, which is inevitable. So as long as you understand that change is something inevitable, you can probably get detached. But let's hold on for that thought. Let's keep a pause on that thought. Let's get into detachment, how a monk is detached and monk lives without a plan. Uh, Before going there, let me catch up a little with what we have been covering the other day, last week. I was talking about how our thoughts are chained. For example, if I ask you to think of a demon, a devil, or a ghost right now, create a mental image, you would think about different types of image right now. You would think of a scary one, you would think of a funny one, or you would think someone cute like Casper, the friendly ghost. You would think of something. But you will see that the image that you can create for yourself, the image that you will create for yourself will be either human-like, or will be an animal-like, or will be something, a hybrid of that. But you would never think of a ghost who's like uh, say, a computer webcam, or a pen, or a microphone. Why is that? Because although we think that we are free to think of anything, actually we can't think like that. We can't think anything that we like, but we can think of things that we are designed to think. Um, Another way to look at it is like sometimes in Sri Lanka, you see that there are cows who have been tied, they are grazing, and they are tied with a little long rope, and the cow grazes thinking that he has absolute freedom. But to see that although cow thinks that there's a lot of freedom, he can only graze to the length or to the radius that the rope allows you to roam around. So although cow thinks he's free to graze anywhere, he is not. He can only uh, go around, move about during that area which he's been tied to. So although we think our thoughts are totally free, we we think that it's a free flowing thought. We can think of anything, absolutely anything. Actually, to see that our thoughts are not so, that we are chained by certain limitations. And I will tell you about another nice story about the Zen monk and the teacher, or the Zen teacher and the student. I'm sure most of you have heard about this story, but if you haven't, so there was this Zen teacher, Zen master who was enlightened and who was supposed to be very wise. So one day, one day a student approached. This student is highly qualified. He has done a lot of degrees. So he wanted to gain wisdom from this teacher, from the master. So he came and said, Master, will you teach me your wisdom? The master said, Sure. Let's take a let's take a let's please do it. Let's have a tea because that's a tradition in Japan or in China. So the master kept two cups on his table, and then he took the teapot, and then he was pouring the tea. And then he was pouring the tea onto the cup of the student until uh, that he put so much tea that it starts flowing out. And then the student said, Master, what are you doing? The cup is full, just stop. This is enough. And then the teacher said, yes, I was trying to show you something, that when our minds are full with prejudice, when our minds are full with information that we have, no matter what we put novel, what we put new, it doesn't stick there. It overflows. You know this story that it's very hard to teach something to someone who's sort of very adamant on the knowledge that he knows. He wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen in an open manner. Now, as true as it may be, think of a humble person who's very open to ideas, who's very humble. Even a person like that. Now, this is the deeper meaning of this Zen story. Uh, as kids, we hear that it's hard to teach something new for someone who's quite arrogant or adamant about the knowledge he has. But think about this most humble person who's open to any idea. Even that person can only think about or interpret things based on what he know. So no matter what you try to pour into his cup, the new knowledge, it wouldn't stay there because it would always overflow because we are bound by the knowledge we have. So that's a deeper meaning of this Zen story. And I have a fantastic example to show you how bound you are. Is that look around your room, you can never find something that you don't know. And why is that? We only see things that we know. We see a statue, see a door. There is no, there's nothing in this room that you can't see, which you don't know. And suppose that even if there was something that you didn't know, you would still know it. I was discussing with a friend recently, and what he was saying is that there's a circle. What he would like to say is that there's a universe of things that which could exist, and then there's a circle. That is the circle of our knowledge. That's a circle that we know. And he was telling me that there could be items which are totally exclusive of our circle, which is outside of our circle. But then to really see that in practical sense, we never find something which is totally outside our circle. We always find something which has an overlap with our circle. Let's take totally newly designed. You know, when designers design things, they come up with fancy designs. So they have these fancy chairs. But even a fancy chair, which is totally unchair looking, would resemble a chair component in it. So it is not totally outside our circle of knowledge. It has an overlap in our circle of knowledge. So, like this Zen master trying to tell the student that you have so much knowledge, whether you like it or not, that you have gathered through your uh, family, through your surroundings, through your education. All that knowledge, you cannot surpass that knowledge, and your thoughts are bound by the amount of information and knowledge you have. So that's one thing that we learned the other day. And another thing that we learned is that although we think that we work with a free will, that sometimes sometimes we tend to work quite habitually. In fact, you'll see that it's most of the time we work habitually. So uh, if you see this image, it's an image of Sri Lankan devils. It's actually a very cultural thing. There are these rituals where you have a overnight session where you dance off with the drums, the local drums and local music, uh, wearing these devil masks. And there are 18 different types of devil masks that you wear. And the story is that there are different characters. So they appear, they go, and the next one comes. So that's a story. But again, if you look at it, if you look at the story more holistically, you find that these are not different people. These are not different characters, but this is the same person having different characters, having different moods. Sometimes you are furious, sometimes you are filled with rage, sometimes you are very jealous, sometimes you are very sarcastic, sometimes you are very funny, sometimes you are filled with lust, sometimes you are extremely political. So you find all these characteristics in one person, and this is the depiction of all these emotions a human could have in this devil face mask. And why I want to bring this up is that don't we wear these masks every day at our work, at our with our kids, when we are at institutes, when we are at school? Don't we wear these masks and act habitually? And why I say we act habitually, think of an example that where you have to grab a hot pan or a hot mug. The moment that you grab something really hot, your involuntary response would be to take your hand out and say that it's burning. This is very involuntary. But again, if you could do this experiment later on without, of course, burning your hand, you will see that the response that you have is not directly proportional to the sensation you get. What do I mean by that? I have seen when we don't go out for bhiksha, or when we don't get food as alms from people who come and donate food. Sometimes we have to cook, and when we are cooking, I see that I have to touch the hot pan and move it from one place to the other place. And the natural reaction would be that you touch something really hot and take your hand out. But if you are mindful about that, you'll find that the sensation of hot and the reaction are not quite proportionate. Sometimes you just habitually do it. You just habitually, involuntarily take your hand away. And another way to look at it is that when you touch from your fingers, you find it's really hot. But the same hot thing, a same hot chunk of rice, you can put it on your mouth and eat it. Now, it's quite counterintuitive, because we think that the tongue and the mouth is more sensitive. But to see that hand is more sensitive, is the hand more sensitive, or are we habitually reacting to the senses of hand in a more aggressive manner? Take a look at it. And also, I remember an incident about an year ago. I had to extract one of my tooth. I had to pull it out. So I was telling the doctor, doctor, I would like to do an experiment. Would you like to do it without giving me anesthetics, without numbing my gum? He said, look, Sadhu, we can't do that. Although you would like to do your meditation, pain meditation, I can't allow to do that. So I will give you a pain medication. So he numbed me, and then he extracted my tooth. And then I said, doctor, don't give me painkillers. He said, it's unethical. I still am bound by the oath, so I will still have to give you. But then I said, I will not, I will only take the antibiotics and I will not take the painkillers. So then I was not taking the painkillers. So after an hour or 1.5 hours, the anesthetic starts wearing off and then you feel the pain. What I actually wanted to look at is that sometimes you get quite moody, you get quite irritated when you have a toothache because it's quite closer to your head. You feel quite irritated when you have a aching tooth. What I wanted to see is that when I talk to people, when I meditate, when I talk with other monks, when I have an interaction with someone over the phone, does my toothache affect that conversation, or does the toothache affect my mood? And more I observe myself, I see that aching tooth is one thing, but your mood is totally a habit to your aching tooth. And I'm sure, especially for ladies, because compared to men, they come across menstrual pains and all these difficulties. And even if you are sick, when you have a fever or when you have a running nose, that you see that your mood changes. You are quite snappy about it. So, is this snappiness, is this irritating feeling, is it really a uh, response to your pain, or is it a habit that you have learned over a period of time? I will also bring out another example. When you travel to Far East countries like Cambodia, China, Philippines, you find that there are different types of delicacies. For example, there's frog, there's snake, there's cockroaches, there's dog. So you find all these different type of meats that you wouldn't usually consume. In Cambodia, one time when I was there, I saw that there are snakes who are on a stick. It's like a corn dog. It's like a corn dog. They sit on a stick, and people sell it. The street side vendors sell the snake. And imagine that if you are served with a snake on a stick, right? Your immediate reaction would be quite. If you are not a snake eater if you are not a native snake eater, or if you are not very adventurous about your food, your natural reaction would be you will be filled with disgust, right? Is that really a habit, or is it really the snake which is giving you the disgust? Why I'm saying that is because sometimes in some cultures, when you are used to that culture, it is a delicacy because you want to eat the snake as a delicacy, right? But sometimes when you are not used to that, because you are not uh, prepared, or rather you are not used to, it is not your habit, you attach disgust there. So I want you to look at your experiences during the next week. The responses we have, are they habitual, or are they really proportionate to the sensual perceptions that we get? Is it proportionate to the touch? Is it proportionate to the smell? Is it proportionate to what we see or what we hear? Or if you look a little deeper into your mind, is it proportionate to what you even feel? So having said that, so we discussed about how chained our mind is, how chained our thoughts are, and then how habitual our thoughts are, how habitual our responses are. We also wanted to theorize it and come up with this theory, how it would work, how a habit would come about. So habits don't come straight away. There's a way that a habit is formed. We have our sensory experiences, we have our learning from parents, society, books and institutes, the more formal ways of learning. And then just because we learn something, or because we come across an information uh, or a perception, we don't start believing in it straight away. What we do is that we feel the emotion, and we rationalize it with the knowledge we have. Sometimes when you're especially young, you don't tend to rationalize, you just feel it. And if you somehow like it, you are just a believer of that habit, or that reaction. So again, looking at eating cockroaches versus eating chicken. If you take a a person from, say, Canada or Sri Lanka and put him in a country where they eat cockroaches, if the kid is being sent to that country where at a quite young age, when he's grown up, he would have no problem eating cockroaches or snakes or dog. He will be totally fine with it. It's as if he's eating a piece of chicken, right? But a person who's eating chicken, and assume that there's a culture where they hate chicken. Of course, we find that sometimes in halal meat, kosher meat, certain animals are not included. Even in Hindu-based or even Buddhist-based, we have a restriction on eating certain meats. Like there's 10 meats that you are not ideally supposed to eat, and a person who's living in that culture for so long, it's odd for him to eat that meat. Say that chicken is banned in your culture or in your religion, eating chicken would look so disgusting. I know this because my mother, for I think religious purpose, she's a vegetarian, and although she cooks meat for us time to time, what she's saying is that when she eats meat, she feels quite disgusted. It's almost as if she has a gag reflex, like she wants to throw up when she eats meat. So you see that sometimes these habits can stay, it can get deeply rooted, and this is how the habits are made. And also, once we have a habit, we start acting unconsciously without consciousness. We just follow the habit. Regardless of what perception you get, what sensory input you get, you just follow the habit. You are designed. In a way, it makes life easy because you don't have to think too much, and you are habitual. The next thing is that when the habits are there, we first start getting the stimulus. Let's say that we hear music, and then we have an emotion following that, and then we have a reaction. Suppose that you are locked down with your kids, and early in the morning the kids start playing techno or club music, like they have been to the Tomorrowland. So they start playing this music, and you'll be so upset about it. Why do this kid play this bouncy club electronic music early in the morning? Why can't I listen to Beethoven or a nice symphony orchestra, Andrea Bocelli? Why can't I listen to classic music? And so the music is a stimulus you get, and the next to the hearing music, you get this emotion, which is quite repulsive, and then you start reacting with a with an angry face, with an angry mind. You may even use words. So that's how you react to a habit. So we see how we react to our habits, and we see how habits are being formed. Also, we covered a bit of ground on why do people do what they really do, that they have different needs at each point of their not chronological age, but let's say a different type of an age. As you grow mature, your needs change. And again, I'm not telling it in a bad sense, but for some people, because they are probably constrained of resources, or that for some reason that they don't pass a certain stage, they tend to stay in the same stage until they perish away. Right. So a normal person, if you take when you're quite young in your life, you have the physiological needs. You need, let's say, an early adult, like a teen. It's about money. It's about materialistic things. It's about how to gain different materialistic possessions, etc. But then comes a time where it's not all about that. You want belongingness. You want to be feeling loved. You want to feel belonging to a community. And then more you grow, it's about the power, like we were discussing those growing up people from stage to stage. So it's about power. And if you take in the yoga philosophy, they have 7 chakras, and the first 3 are dedicated to these materialistic needs. And they say you need to sort of get saturated in each chakra to move on to the next level, or to move on to the next chakra. When the root chakra is saturated, that is the time your next chakra will be opened. So they call it chakra opening. But instead of looking at it as an energy which is in your body, I really want you to view it as a state of mind. at each non-chronological age that we have these different needs, and more we tend to mature, we move from one need to the other. So from very materialistic needs, we sort of come into more spiritual looking needs, self-actualization looking needs. We start getting habits, or becoming ourselves more benevolent. We start acting ourselves, we start accepting ourselves, self-acceptance, compassion. And then we start becoming more honest. When I say honest, not in a general sense, but in terms of our self-expression, we start becoming about truly expressing what we truly believe. In order to say what we truly believe, we need to look inwards and see what we truly believe. Otherwise, you are just saying something that you think that you believe, which could not be the real case. But if you look deep inside, you will see that to do a real self expression, or to be really honest, you need to see inwards. That's only when you can say honestly what you truly believe. And then you also start developing this habit of looking inwards mindfully. You start becoming aware of your own chained thoughts, or thought chains, or how you react to habits, or how these habits are formed. And beyond that, they say that beyond this uh, initial three parts of the non-materialistic chakras, the last one is totally wisdom. It's not even in your body, it's outside your body. So that's what the yogic schools tells us. But we learn that at each part of our life, we act differently to our drives. So our drives are different. And then let me draw your mind that I was asking, the lockdown taught you what is your true purpose of existence, or at least it gave you a pause. It hit that pause button and said, take a break from your rat race and see what is really needed, what is the true purpose of your existence. Then you might have come across that we have these different stages of our life, like Maslow said, physiological, power, love, etc., etc. We are trying to gain something. We are trying to feel something. We are trying to make our cup full, make ourselves fulfilled. Although that everyone's dream is to fulfill ourselves, that you will see that no matter how much we try to fulfill ourselves, the grass is always green on the other side. We want the thing that we don't have. For example, 2019, you wanted annual leave, not for 2 weeks, for 2 months. And in 2020, you got annual leave for 2 months. But now you want to work, so much so that you want to work from home. So you see, you always want that thing that you don't have. And why is that? Why do we feel that we are so unfulfilled, and we are in a continuous search to fill ourselves, to fill our cup? And why is that we can't simply rest in peace? Now, how can a person rest in peace? The only way a person can rest in peace is when he's done with his plans, when he has nothing for him to seek for, he can rest in peace. But can we really rest in peace? Because our urges are so much. Even when we have a fantastic annual vacation, which is lockdown, we can't enjoy that. We want to look for things that we can't get. And if you all of a sudden 2021, if everyone is put on a uh, office environment again, you will start complaining, I need leave now. So you always try to look for the thing that you do not have. And just observe this pattern. And this has been the pattern ever since, right? So let's look at these people, our previous people who have been growing up. I would also like to show you another aspect when we are growing up. Now, if you look at the amount of money that you need to spend at each part of your life to be satisfied, when you are a kid, when you're a teenager, when you're an adult, the amount of money, if you draw it in one axis, and then also you draw the age on another axis, you will find that the amount of money that you are spending is something like that. For the same amount of happiness, for the same amount of pleasure, When you grow up, you have to spend more and more. For example, if you are an adult now, to buy a car, you would have to spend so much, a few $1,000s, a few million rupees in Sri Lanka. But you see, when you're a kid, you don't need to spend money. You only need a box of matches. I remember when I was young, a box of matches or or some item can become a plane. It can become a rocket. It can become a car. So I'm satisfied. So I would enjoy the box of matches more than I enjoy a BMW right now, right? So you see that more you grow, the cost you have to incur increases. And you might think that when you grow older, like when you're really old, it might decrease. Actually, it does not. When you are in your midlife, you spend on recreational drugs. And more you grow older, you start spending on medical drugs. So it still keeps going up. So you see that it's quite sad that we have to spend more and more to get the same amount of happiness. And now, what is happiness again? Or what is the mechanism of this happiness? You would see that we have urges, we have desires, and trying to fulfill would be called as an urge. Trying to fulfill something is called the urge or the desire. Achieving the desire gives us pleasure. Now, what's the connection? Trying to or wanting to fulfill is urge, and achieving the urge or achieving the desire is pleasure. Now, this pleasure, every time you get the pleasure, it makes the desire much stronger. You want to do it again and again. And from just having a very small wanting or a very light thought of wanting, you go and achieve it, and then you want it more again the next time. So the desires and the pleasure you get are sort of in a chicken and egg situation, right? Which comes first? Is it the pleasure or is it the desire? But we see that desire and pleasure are quite interlinked. We don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but desires gives us pleasure, or attaining, fulfilling our desires gives us pleasure. And that pleasure itself makes us wanting more and more things. It's like a vicious cycle. From being very light, you become very attached. Again, if you look at a kid, right? A kid recently, last year, just before the first lockdown of Corona, there was a funeral. Some friends of this temple, they had that family had two kids. The youngest kid was about 1 year old. The second one was about 2 years old. The father passed away, and we went for the final rituals of that person who passed away just before the lockdown. And to see that the youngest kid, he was just playing under the coffin. He had no attachment even to his father's death. But more and more you grow in your life, you will see that you get so attached to your loved ones. You get so attached that it will be very hard for you to absorb, right? So you see that from a simple drive of fulfillment, something can become a very deep urge. uh, Even though it gives pleasure, that pleasure itself wants to wants us to fulfill that even more and more. So from being very light, like that kid who had no attachment, you would become an adult who's very attached, right? So that's one nature of our attachment, or rather our pleasure. Let's look at it from another point of view. You probably have seen this, that there's this curve called the bell curve. In fact, this curve you see everywhere, the waxing and the waning of the moon, right? The high tide and the low tide, sunlight. Now it's early morning in Sri Lanka. I see the uh, sun coming out, and it will be hot. It will be quite at a high point, and then it will go down, and then it will be the night. So you see this pattern everywhere, be it in your mind, be it in the outside world, uh, anywhere you find this natural phenomena of the bell curve. Now the bell curve has a beginning, has an ascent, has a descent, and an end to it, or rather a change. Instead of saying an end, we could even call it a change. Things don't really end, They just change to a different form. If you look at your urge also follows the same pattern. Although you think that when you have a drive which gives you pleasure and you get pleasure by attaining that drive, it gives even a bigger urge to achieve that. Although you think that it's cyclically endlessly going up, you see that it's not the case all the time. Sometimes there's a natural end to the urge, right? So I remember the time that when I was young during my high school, we had this exam, and I'm generally not a very studious person. I don't like studying per se, but I like reading books. I like reading literature. And then I found that there's so limited time with your work at school, the time that you have to read your books. And all of a sudden, after my exams, I found all the time in the world and all the books in the world. I mean, there was a lot of access to the books. But to see that my urge has gone down. When I have it, it has gone away. I didn't want to read books anymore. I want to do something else. So my urge came to a natural end. And if you take a relationship, you would find that during the infatuation, you are quite infatuated. It's probably the best period that you can have. And then it reaches this plateau, and usually it goes down. But we don't want that feeling to go down. We want to flatten the curve like we did with Corona. We want to elongate it. We want to keep going. And that's the very nature of a person, of a being, is that we want to live, we want to hang on. And something which is different, which makes a layperson different from a monk, would be that a monk does not wish to hang on. Again, don't misunderstand. When I say a monk does not wish to hang on to life, it doesn't mean that he's suicidal, that he's so upset that he's suicidal and he wants to let go of everything. That's not the way to look at it. Let me explain to you further. So instead of trying to flattening a curve, we try to uh, sort of accept the curve as it is. And I will show you, I will give you a few examples of how this happens really and how this natural urge ends. I don't know if you know these people here. So on the left, you have Avicii, who's a famous DJ who committed suicide in 2018. And then on the right, you find James Packer, who's a business tycoon from Australia who owns a lot of casinos, a lot of resorts, etc. So, say Avicii, in his life, at a very young age, he has been very fortunate to get all the money that anyone could dream of, and all the love that anyone could dream of. Love from his fans, love. A lot of people loved Avicii, and all the fame that a person could think of. So, when he has gotten everything, there's even documentaries that you can look into that Avicii has become so upset about his existence. He found that it to be quite problematic. He ended his life. And same with James Packer. He got everything he wanted, uh, love, the basic needs, the money, career, the power, everything. And then he announced that I'm going to step down because I'm depressed. So you see that sometimes when you start getting things, you you don't know how to hang on to life. But some people like this, Bill Gates and Elon Musk, they know how to hang on to life. And let's see how they hang on to their lives. Bill and Melinda, they're quite very nice people, quite benevolent people. They created this trust basically to eradicate hunger or eradicate power from the world. Elon Musk, on the other hand, he wanted to save the civilization and put a colony in Mars. Now, both of these things are very fantastic things a person could do. But you also see, compared to Avicii or James Packer, their targets are so ahead. You can't eradicate hunger or poverty in the world in a lifetime. In fact, I don't know anyone could ever eradicate it. Of course, it's not very nice to try for it. And Elon Musk, I don't know if he would succeed in his vision to colonize Mars during his lifetime, because life could end the next minute. Even if it doesn't, even the 50 years he have or 30 years he have, I don't know if it's possible. But this is how, if you want to stay in this world, you keep existing. You hang on to something which is too far fetched, too far away, and then you hang on to that feeling, and you carry on like that. So, again, in summary, when you have an urge, you work as if there's nothing else matters. It's all about that urge. But you see that these urges, these desires, they are quite relative. They change with your age. What was mattering the most? Like, for example, when I was young, all what mattered to me as a kid was playing outside in the hot sun. And there came an age that all what mattered for me was my career. So the amount of energy that you hang on to, uh, sacrificing everything you have, right? It just changes. And you could see that sometimes you love a person so much. A lot of people come and say that I have been loving my first wife a lot. And then he's coming to me about the problem of the second wife, right? So when the time that you are infatuated and when you loved your first wife a lot, you would do anything for her. But you see, uh, it falls into this natural curve. Your uh, relationship hits this plateau, and then it starts waning off, deteriorating, and then you find a new one. And then the all the things that you sacrificed, everything that you did during the first period becomes null and void. So you see that these desires are very relative. They change with age, they change with environment. For example, your habits change drastically with your environment. If someone comes to the temple, they would have all of a sudden a very calm mind. And when they go to a party, they would have a very funky mind. And when they go to a tensed office, they would have a very tensed mind. So the mind or the desire or the habit changes with the environment. It changes with the time of the day. Now what is nice in the morning is not so nice in the evening, right? And overall, throughout our lives, the only thing that we can see is this continuous change of our desires. But what we fail to understand is that when a desire is happening, we just hang on to it so tight, in a game of tug of war. If you hang on too tight, if you are so tightly, if you have clenched your fist so tightly, if you are grabbing to the rope too tight, and if the rope is been uh, taken away, if it's pulled from the other side, you can get a burn. So tighter you are attached to your rope, more burns you would have. And in Sri Lanka, we have coconut trees. And if someone tried climbing a coconut tree, you would find that after climbing about a few feet, you could slide down. And if you hang on too tight to the coconut tree, you would have a abrasive burn. If you don't hang on too tightly, you would just slide down. So more you tend to hang on to your desires, the abrasive wound it would leave will also be higher. And all these desires, aren't they like clouds at sea on a beautiful evening? There are clouds looking like dinosaurs, looking like swans, all types of different images. And we hang on to these clouds so much, and when they disappear, we cry. Like those kids who are building a sandcastle, a beautiful sandcastle in the beach, on the beach, and when they get washed away, they cry. Our mind is like a canvas where we can paint using any color. So from the time that we are woken up, we create these mental images using different colors. And these colors, because of the very nature of our mind, they get blotted away, they get washed away, and the canvas gets refreshed, right? Uh, so we don't realize that it's like a fish trying to draw something on the water. We don't realize that it's going to eventually disappear. We hang on to that, and all these desires which you are hanging on to, which could also hurt you. So I was telling you that I was at one point of my life was quite into this wonderful sport called surfing, and it's a quite meditative sport because in order to do surfing you have to uh, drive so far away, few hours, and then you have to go to the shore, and then you have to swim to the uh, swell. You need to swim to the swell, And then you have to wait for the swell. You need to wait for that wave to catch the wave. You need to wait for the wave. And so you wait for 10 minutes, you may wait for 20 minutes, depending on the wave pattern. And eventually you find the wave. And then if you can catch the wave, you start surfing. If you can't, you just struggle. And for that very brief moment, when you are on top of the wave, you are just with yourself. That's why I said it's very meditational. Surfing is very meditational. So is any sport or any activity that we do with that type of an awareness or a concentration, it makes you one with your experience. Usually we are not one with our experience. We have an experience, but our mind is wandering either in the future or in the past. We are not usually in the present, but these type of experiences uh, aligns your experiences to the present. So with the waves, what I have learned is that if you have gone to the beach and stayed on a surfboard, you will see that sometimes the waves come and the waves go. And if you don't try too hard to catch the wave will just pass, right? If you're on a boat, uh, if you have noticed the waves on the ocean, waves don't take you anywhere. It's the current which takes you somewhere. Current drags you somewhere, but the wave does not. Wave comes, you would go up and you would go down. The wave passes. That's how the waves work. But the currents would drag you to whichever the direction that the current wants to drag you. So our desires, aren't they like these waves in the ocean? They come and they go. The person who doesn't know this nature of our mind try to hang on to this wave and try to catch the wave. And if you are a surfer, you know how hard it is to catch the wave. You need to swim vigorously in order to catch the wave. You need to match your speed with the speed of the wave. That's how you catch a wave. So with these desires that you hang on to, sometimes you are unable to catch them. It's relatively easy to catch a wave in the ocean, but our desires are like really trying to catch wind. They just flow away, and we are trying to catch them. And when we can't catch them, we feel so unsatisfied, so unfulfilled, so heartbroken. Again, now don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. Also try to read between the lines, the underlying message that I'm trying to say. I'm not for the very nature of it, I can't tell you the message straight away, but it's more of a encrypted, like I'm talking in crypt. I'm using a cryptic language. All these examples that I'm giving, I'm trying to communicate something, but I cannot communicate it to you directly. Like 1 + 1 is 2, which is very apparent. I can't communicate it to you like directly, but you don't have to understand what I'm saying. You just only have to listen, right? Without prejudice. Don't reject it. Don't accept it. Just listen and see if there's any transformation, especially with related to this lockdown related issues that we have. So we were trying to catch waves. Also, you would see that you start catching waves and then you can't catch them sometimes. Sometimes you can catch them and it increases your desire and urge. So you want to catch a bigger wave, like a drug addict who starts with an entry level drug and keeps on advancing on his drugs. So you start with something and then you go to more sophisticated, more harmful drugs. And each time you upgrade, the cost increases. So like with the age, every time you upgrade, you try to upgrade your happiness, you see that you are spending more. In order to get the same happiness, you have to spend more. Now when I say spend, it is not only in terms of money, in terms of energy, in terms of time. To get the same happiness, you have to invest more. So your return on the investment goes down. Actually, the returns on the investment goes down over a period of time and over a course of a desire. There's another solution for urges. If you really want to control an urge, there's another way. That is a distraction. You can distract yourself and control your urges. How you could do that is now again, if you are used to eating 3 meals a day, and if you want to somehow reduce your meal intake, or if you want to go on an intermittent fasting, you would see that sometimes you need to control your hunger. And what's the easiest way to control your hunger? Is to distract yourself, is to postpone, right? So you will see sometimes that when you are really busy, when you are facing a big issue at your office or big issue at your a house in your household. Or if you're having a heartbreak, if you have a broken heart, you tend to forget your meals. And where's that hunger which existed? So sometimes hunger is so irritating, it's so urging, it gives you this irritation, and you're hungry, and you are even taking it out, venting it out on the other people around you. So I'm referring this hunger to all the urges in your mind. And all these examples that I was talking, don't take them literally. Take the idea that I'm trying to communicate. That's why I said take the underlying text, try to grab that underlying text, but not the metaphor in a literal sense. So hunger can be distracted. You will also notice that I'm talking about different phenomena that we see around the world, see in our existence. But actually, I'm talking about our mind, the patterns in our mind, waxing and waning, natural end, habits, how we respond, how we create a habit, how limited our thinking is. These are all properties of our mind. I'm not trying to tell anything else than properties of our own mind. I don't know if you have seen these images before. This is called a mandala. Mandala is an ancient form of art which you find in Tibet, or which you find in northern India. Like if you go to Dharmashala or Manali or Rishikesh, you will find these type of arts. And what does a mandala represent? So you see that there's a demon who's holding this chakra of samsara, or the wheel of existence of a person. And what is depicted, if I explain what is depicted here, is that they say that the universe consists of different realms, a realm of heaven, a realm of human existence, and more realms of sort of darkness. When I say darkness, the animal realm, the where the evil spirits live, etc., etc. And you see that in heaven, it's all about ecstasy. It's about being joyful. And the other hells, or the other negative worlds, the negative realms, one is about cravings. And there's another realm which is of total agony. You only find agony there. And there's another realm which is all about your survival, your self-preservation. It's all about that. Like a squirrel. We have a place where a lot of birds and squirrels gather, and we also have a cat. So I see when I look at these birds, it's all about survival for them. They don't even enjoy their meal peacefully. It's all about survival. And there's another realm which is all about jealousy. It's all about jealousy. So in this particular mandala, the the demon is holding this chakra, or the wheel of samsara, using his two arms, two limbs, and the mouth. And the way that they depict this is that this is not about different realms. Also, it could be a realm in the sense something physical which is in existence. But what I want you to think of it this again, like the same way that we thought about chakras of yogic practice, is that instead of looking at this as different realms, but if you look at it as states of your mind, sometimes you have this extreme joy, the ecstasy. Sometimes, being human, you have the purpose. I forgot to mention the property of the human realm is purpose. You look for what is beyond, right? And all the other realms, the darker realms, they have cravings, they have agony, survival, self-preservation, jealousy, rage, all these type of heavy feelings. And the two arms, two limbs, and the mouth are the five senses. And within these five senses, this is the way that your mind works. So they say that if you are an enlightened being, you will be placed outside these realms of life, or the wheel of samsara, wheel of existence. So you find people who are outside, residing in this picture. When I talk about mandala, there's another form of mandala like this. It looks like a beautiful pattern, but what does this pattern really tries to tell us? You see that there's so many rings, layers into that. So there's an outer ring which is purple, and there's a blue ring, there's a green ring, etc., etc. So What if we take these small circles and I'm talking about the purple circle and the small white dots around it. Can we depict it as our natural urges? So it starts small, the white ring around the purple circle, it starts growing and then it wanes off. It gets washed away. And then you switch to the next urge, right? It's a natural birth of a new desire. And it grows up, it maximizes, it comes to its highest point, and then it starts going down, right? So what we usually do in our usual life is we move from one desire, one urge to the other urge. So we keep moving. So that's how one could spend his entire life moving from one desire to the other desire. That's how you could keep going. But sometimes you find that instead of moving horizontally, you can also move upward. Like from being very materialistic, you can start becoming more spiritually oriented, more self-actualization oriented. So you can move up and down like that also. So I could also say that you could move from some of the lower emotions or low vibrating emotions to more purely vibrating emotions. And in fact, the mandalas are depicted that there are demon-like behaviors. When I say demon-like, they are the jealousy, furious. Those are the demon-like behaviors, and there are the angel-like behaviors, compassionate, benevolent, kind, and there are Brahma-like emotions. Now, what is a Brahma? Brahma, you could equate it to a god, or you could even call a sage a Brahma, or you can call it a wise person, a wise spiritual person. Now, what's the difference of a Brahma? That he's very equanimous. He's very neutral. Considers about equanimity. It's not about being tossed away to greed or aversion. He's more neutral to things. Now, this neutrality could come, of course, because you are too lazy or because you want to be avoidant. You know, you could also want to withdraw from your life. You can go and seek refuge in some isolated spot. That is also another way to be neutral. But then again, you see that no matter where you go, you cannot seek refuge from your own mind. You can withdraw from the society. Oftentimes, people ask me, Sadhu, is your purpose withdrawing from the daily grind of your life and detaching from the society? It's not the answer to that. It's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to hide away from the society. I'm just trying to understand my mind and go into a different realm inside my mind. Because no matter where you go, assume that you went to the most isolated place. Still, you will be not free from your own realms. You can be furious, you can be agitated, you can be lustful. All these hard emotions will be bothering you. But then, why I say these emotions are hard, what is more peaceful to you? Is the moment that you are so desirous to get something, that moment where you have a lot of urge, is that the more peaceful thing, or is that the moment where you just look at the sun, look at the ocean, look at a fly, look at a bee? Is that the more peaceful moment? Is the peace lies in this equanimity, neutrality, or does the peace lies in this greed or the aversion? In fact, aversion is a little stronger than, or rather, fury is a stronger emotion than lust. Lust is soft, it's nice, it's nicer, but anger is not nice. No one want to live their lives in anger or in fury or in rage, but people would like to live their lives in desire, like in lust, right? But if you see a realm of your mind which you have never seen before, of this neutrality, of this peace, you would start loving this. But mind you, again, if you start loving this, you will be still inside this wheel of samsara, the wheel of existence. So, how do we really go outside this? Now, the depiction of this mandala is that the only way to move forward is go from one ring to the other ring. So from the purple ring, you move to the blue ring and the white ring until you find that there are no more rings left, that you are not walking on a horizontal path, but you are moving upwards. And you would come to this one central point where there is no existence. Now, why do I say that? In a circle, you can find the area under the circle, but you can find the area on a dot. When I say dot, even if we draw a dot, it would be a circle. I mean, it would be the diameter of the pen that we are trying to use or the pencil that we are trying to use. But if you think of a dot, which is by definition, it's a dot, a single point. There's no existence in a single point. We can only think about it, but if you really see a dot, you can't see a dot. Now that looks like an oxymoron. What does that mean? Anyway, let's hold on to that thought again. Instead of moving in circles, instead of moving in distractions, right? We talked about if we want to control an urge, we can distract. But by distracting, it would be like you're moving from one purple ring to another purple ring. Even if you don't distract, you would eventually move on. What you liked when you were young, you would move on to a different thing when you grow older. So instead of doing that, you move into a different circle entirely. From being more demon like, you become more angel like. From becoming more angel like, you become more Brahma like, right? So that's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is that, or the other way to find out is by really using this Pratyaveksha. Now I was trying to find a English word for Pratyaveksha, which I could find. So if you Google it, you would find things like reflect or retrospect. But I don't think that explains Pratyaveksha to a great extent. So Pratyaveksha is not really about retrospecting or reflecting on things. Pratyaveksha is about, now if we take the words Pratya and Veksha, Pratya literally means food. But when you say food, it's more fuel. Like food is needed for our existence, and food is needed for thought. Food for thought, right? So pratya is really the input, and vekshana means in Sanskrit that you are in search for something. You are looking for something. So what you're really doing is you are looking at as a observer, as an unbiased, non-judgmental observer. You are looking at things as it is, and you're looking at what fuels them, what fuels your thought, what fuels your habit, what fuels your boredom, what fuels your rage. Again, why am I telling you all these things? Like instead of now, when we first came to this discussion, I was supposed to help you with the issues with regard to corona lockdown, COVID lockdown. But instead of doing that, I'm talking gibberish. I'm talking about mind. I'm talking about habit. Like I told you the first day, if I'm a doctor, I could give you a tablet so that you would take it. You take a paracetamol and your headache is gone. But I could teach you medicine, and I would like to, instead of giving you a tablet, I would really like you to teach medicine so that you can self-heal. So that's why I mentioned on the first day that there's a body-related therapy that we are talking about. There's a therapeutic narrative, a story that you can think to console yourself. Or what I eventually want you to understand, or the underlying message of this entire series, is to become more self-aware, right? So pratyaveksha is something that you could do. Now what is pratyaveksha? Now for example, as monks, we have to chant this thing before we take our meals, called the pratyaveksha chanting. And what we do is that when we eat and we keep on eating, we look at it as it is, non-judgmentally. Are we eating this food because our body needs for our existence, or are we eating it out of greed? Now, it doesn't say if you are eating it out of greed, stop immediately and then stop eating. It's not the point. The point is to observe, know that you are greed. Or are you eating with repulsion? Are you do you not like this food? You don't eat that food with love. You eat it with rejection. Is that a curry that you don't like, right? Or is it a curry that you like so much that your mom cooked, and when you see the curry, You find that emotion next to it, the warmth of the mother and how she fed you and all that. Now we are looking at how your mind works, the pratyaveksha, how things work in a very atomic level, right? Instead of looking at things superficially, you are looking at things in an atomic level. So I could also tell you something that you can do the same thing during the next week and share your experience with me uh, about how you do things, how you crave for food, how you crave for an addiction for alcohol, right? Uh, all you have to do is just observe, not observe forcefully. If you remember it, just observe. If you don't remember it, don't just forcefully observe. We'll get to this at a later point of our discussion about mindfulness. But all what you need to do is observe your craving, observe your addiction, right? And if you take an addiction like alcohol, say, so if you are familiar, if you have been consuming alcohol, you would know. Otherwise, for the sake of doing this experiment, don't try to get into that habit. If you are already in that habit, observe that there are different types of drugs. There are drugs which are inhibitors, stimulants, hallucinogens. So what an inhibitor does, it inhibits your feelings, it inhibits your fear, it inhibits your motor function. And there are stimulants which enhances, it amplifies. And there are hallucinogens which totally gives you a totally different picture, right? So there are different types of drugs, and alcohol happen to be in the category of inhibiting. So it inhibits your motor function, you can't walk properly, it inhibits your feelings sometimes like fear, scariness. So in Sri Lanka they say that people are primarily speaking Sinhala or Tamil, but when they are drunk they start speaking in English. They do not have that shyness, they can go up on the stage and do the karaoke. So it inhibits your feelings, right? So if you are addicted to alcohol per se, and if you look at what makes you happy when you consume that drug, if you look in closely in that atomic level, right? If you look into this atomic level of pratyaveksha, what is really happening, you will see that uh, it's always not about getting high. Now, what is getting high, right? Uh, when you consume alcohol, it's with that people that you like to hang out with. It's the company. Oh, sometimes you attach this happiness to the sleepiness or the drowsiness because it is a little relaxing. It's like you're uh, on a drug as in on a drug right after you take a surgery, you feel that you are quiet in a relaxed position where you don't have the sensation of your body, you're relaxed. So are you attaching your happiness to that relaxation, right? Or is it the taste, is it the smell, is it the bubbles? What exactly are you attached to? Now if you can look at your addiction, and if you can look closer, if you can magnify in the atomic level, what exact component are you addicted to? Is it the company? Is it the feeling of drowsiness, the detachment from your body? Is it the taste, the smell, the environment, the ambience? What is it? So I want you to look into these things and share with me. Unfortunately, we don't have time today also to do a Q&A. So look into these aspects of your life and see what exactly causes your desire or your natural compulsive urge. And why this compulsive urge? This compulsiveness, this urge, this uncontrollable desire is what will not allow you to rest in peace or stay freely during a lockdown period. Because you're so eager, you want to achieve what is not here now, you want to go to the next thing. Again, I'm not trying to say it in a bad way, I'm trying to say it as part of our lives. It's not nothing unnatural. And again, what I don't want to do is I don't want you to do something else by thinking about this. I don't want you to do something else. All I want you to do is look at things more internally. Try to internalize your existence. All this time before corona you were trying to externalize it. Now try to internalize your existence. And also another thing you could do, you can start loving your own shadow, right? Now, what I mean by own shadow is start loving to be with yourself. Now, from the day that you are born to the day that you die, there are two monks in our temple who are twins. Now, they shared the same womb for 9 months and they came out and they are monks together and in the same temple. It seems like they are together all the time. But to see, if you really ask them, they are two different people. And each person has only lived with himself for his entire existence. He hasn't lived with someone else. We feel like we are living with someone else, but really, we are only living with ourselves. And we do not know this, and we consider being ourselves a bad thing. That's why you don't like lockdown. You don't want to be with yourself. So until you start loving yourself, until you start accepting yourself, you will be afraid of this shadow as if you see a ghost, right? So shadow is a ghost to you right now. The one thing that you're most afraid is right now is to be with yourself, to be with your own feeling, with your own habits, with own uh, chain of thoughts, with your own fuel, which fuels these thoughts, right? So make use of this lockdown. Take time to make use of this lockdown in order to understand yourself and to love yourself and be with yourself. So with that, we'll conclude the discussion for today. And also, through this discussion, you can get into a lot of misunderstanding. Now, why I say misunderstanding is that whatever I say is very biased. I can only show you one aspect of aspect of our life. For example, I was trying to sort of repel you away from desire, right? But when I try to repel you away from desire, you start becoming more averse to desire. Instead of being neutral, you start becoming more averse. So we like a pendulum swing between these desires and aversions. And that was the first word or the first thing that Buddha, when he got enlightened and when he first met his first disciples, that's the first thing that he said. There are two states of mind: desire, wanting, or aversion, rejection. Either you want to accept it or you want to reject it. And we swing between those two states, right? And we don't know what we really want to, what we really have. Is it aversion or desire? But underneath all your skin, underneath your mind, underneath your superficial mind, there's a big engine working, which we are still not aware of. So all I'm asking you is to be with yourself, use this time that you got with Corona, and internalize your feelings, right? So with that, we will end the discussion for today, and we will look at how the other issues like uncertainty, boredom, or uncertainty, the fear of death, fear of losing jobs, fear of losing our normal way of life, and all these uncertainties and the fears related to COVID, right? We'll look at how a monk would approach these questions or these issues. So today we looked at the urge related part for the first 2 days, and then we'll move on to the more fear related parts and how what's the experience of a monk to fight this lockdown issue, or if monk sees a lockdown as a problem, or if a monk sees lockdown as a playground where he can be with himself. So that is the formal end of today's discussion. May all beings find your eternal bliss.